What's up, everybody? Tristan's Shop Talk, episode number 37. Finally. And we have the famous Colin Thomas Wright.
I don't know about that famous part.
Thank you, sir, for joining me, man. Like I said, the initial meeting with you was quite a while back. I look back now and I'm kind of glad it happened. Which even on that point, when it did happen, I was kind of lost. So, ladies and gentlemen, Colin Wright, I was just moving around downtown, I think, and then I stopped by Dirt Bar, and Dirt Bar is a good bar. I love Dirt Bar. I still, every now and then after a game, I go there, and I don't even know what initiated the conversation, because even that's kind of confusing to me myself. Like, what actually initiated the conversation, and all I know, I guess, right at that point, you suggested, because I think I was like explaining about how I wanted to fight, and then you obviously were. I think Veronica maybe passed me on to you, because I think Veronica had done the kickboxing. Maybe she went to Thailand or something.
Yeah.
And then I think in conversation I just say, oh yeah, and then she's like, oh yeah, and then if you might want to talk to Colin. Colin has a lot of information. And I think, yeah, you were like running around in the back of the bar and doing some things. And then, so then next thing you know, yeah, you suggested Paradigm. And see, this is like a little bit before COVID, I think, if not maybe a year or two.
Yeah,
because 220
before COVID. Yeah.
So I think I was still lost a little bit after that. But then you already gave me the heads up of where to go. And you were like, yeah, man. And then I explained to you, I was like, yeah, I'm just a veteran, man. I just want to get in there. And I think even you kind of just like saw it and you're like, bro, get to Paradigm. They'll take care of you, man. And then I think in a few months or so, I signed up. But it might have been, and actually it might have been a little later. And then I signed up, got into Paradigm, and I showed up the first day. And yeah, now I'm back.
Everything comes full circle, Yeah, I think martial arts are like really special for especially veterans. I think it is a really good way for them to channel, some maybe aggression or whatever that they get from their time in the service and their experiences that they go through. So yeah, man, I would suggest it to anybody,
But it definitely put me in a routine when I started it. Coach G was, open doors. He was, kind of hard, but I knew what I was doing, getting myself into. And yeah, so the beginning of the podcast would say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, man. You're welcome.
And then now it's documented. Now it's like actually recorded saying thank you. So yeah, because during that time, and then I'd always, and so initially, then I believe COVID happened, and I had already started. But then COVID happened, and then I thought, man, I'm gonna take more advantage of this because hardly nobody's even in the class.
Yeah,
everybody was still freaking out about it. I really wasn't freaking out. So then I started with Coach G, and then that's when they had that. I believe they had the gym. Paradigm had that gym over there off of West Gray.
Yeah, it was off of South Rice,
right,
over in Bel Air. Yeah. That was the OG location. We've since moved to Stafford, and we're moving again in January to Sugarland, a little further up the freeway. So they have a really nice facility, and definitely looking to expand that too.
But that's where I ran into you again, and then that's when I saw you, and then I think you gave me some tips on rotating my foot all the way, opposite direction as you fall in with the kick.
Yeah,
and I'll never forget that either.
Huh? Yeah, it's the one thing about the martial arts is like giving back is kind of the fun part for me. That's why I still coach, and yeah.
So what's going on with Colin now?
I am a real estate agent.
Okay.
Luxury real estate agent. So
but you're still in the fighting game.
Yeah, a little bit. I still coach. I'm the head MMA coach at Paradigm Training Center. And yeah, we've got a good little program going on, and I, I really enjoy my time that I get to spend, you know, training the new generation of MMA fighters, and I, can't help myself. I jump in there myself when I can, and um, you know, try not to get beat up too bad.
So, okay, and then the one that's always been boggling. What made you get into MMA?
Yeah, that's easy. I kind of always had like an anger issue growing up. I had a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows why, I don't think. And um, I, I would get in a lot of fights, and then my parents were like, "Well, we got to channel this somehow," and so they got me into a karate class. And
How old were you?
God, 4 or 5. I mean, I was
Really?
yeah, it started young. I was like in preschool having problems. And so that kind of like sparked my interest, my initial interest. And then as I got older, I got bullied a lot. And when I went to military school, and while I was there, I was getting severely bullied by my much older roommates, and we had a judo team. Everybody else was doing like weightlifting, and they also had a boxing team. I tried boxing. I almost got knocked out. Almost got my jaw broke.
So this is at the Marine military?
Yes,
Okay.
Marine military.
So this is the one in Harlingen, Texas.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and this is the one that you ended up going, and then you were 14, 15 maybe around that time, or?
I was 13 initially when the first time I got sent there. Actually, I went as a 13-year-old for the summer camp, and then I actually enjoyed it, and I made the stupid decision to tell my parents that I, enjoyed the experience.
Being yelled at, being told what to do, being
yeah. Well, no, not that part.
Oh,
but
okay,
like,
okay.
we did. It's a summer camp, so like we were doing like we did a lot of obstacle courses. We did a lot of physical fitness and stuff like that, and a rifle, paintball, all that. So that was fun, right? And so I was like 3 weeks into 8th grade, and my parents were like, "If you don't get your shit together, we're gonna send you to military school." And I was like, "F you guys, I don't care." Like,
yeah, but I mean, what were you doing that was so wrong, though? I mean,
I just I didn't want to pay attention in school. Like, I just did not care, and I would mouth off to teachers a lot, and so my parents were like convinced that I was on drugs, which is not the case at all. In fact, I was actually like, we belonged to this church, and I was very, very into Jesus, and it was but I did have an anger problem. I did have like an authority problem, and so they said 3 weeks into 8th grade, they shipped me off to Marine Military Academy in Harlingen, Texas. And I mean, I was getting bullied by them, and so they had a boxing team, and they had a judo program. Tried the boxing, almost got knocked out. So I was like, all right, judo it is. So
but the boxing, was it like they just threw some gloves, and then next thing you know, or did they give you? Oh, okay. So they didn't even try to coach you.
Not really. They were like, hold your hand up like this, and punch like this, and I was like, oh, okay. And I remember I fought some Mexican kid, and he hit me with a straight right, and just, I mean, my jaw felt like it was broke because I wasn't braced to like take the punch. I didn't, I knew nothing. Man. And so I was like, yeah, okay, boxing's not for me. And then I figured out they had a judo program, and I knew what judo was. And so I was like, shit, I'll do judo, and we had this guy was like Mr. Miyagi, man. Like he was like 97 years old. He had like a pacemaker.
Yeah.
And he would come in, and he still had like beautiful technique. It was unbelievable, but he was so frail, like he couldn't demonstrate on anybody. So he had this like very butch Asian woman that was one of his black belts.
Really?
She was badass, dude. And
hell yeah.
Their technique and their form was unbelievable. And I did it for like 3 months. and I was terrible at it. But I did learn like a head and arm throw, um, and I learned like some basic chokes, I guess.
But is judo like more where you're crouched and then you're like,
No.
or
Judo is
is it
upright
up?
with a
Okay,
gi.
okay,
So it's like it's about throws.
okay.
And so like it's yeah. So like jujitsu is actually um
A cousin of it or something in a way.
written jujitsu is like it comes from judo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
Oh, okay,
started
okay.
as judo,
Uh-huh.
and then they brought it to Brazil, and then
Ah,
Brazil turned it into what it is today, which is Brazilian
right.
jiu-jitsu with all the submissions and more ground fighting. So judo is like more
Wow.
about throws. They have submissions in there's competition judo, which is like what you see in the Olympics, and that
Yeah.
is almost purely about throws.
Wow.
But there's also like a more like I guess you would say organic style of judo,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it is it has a lot more submissions and stuff like that. So
That's interesting.
yeah. So anyways, I guess I learned to choke
Hmm.
because the next time my roommate was bullying me, I jumped on his back, choked him out. He tapped. I made him like promise he wasn't going to bully me anymore. He said he wasn't. You know, he left, and he like shoved me into the wall. Had to get one last one in. And then like later that night, like they used to do this thing. He'd go into the hallway, he'd go right beating, and like all the upperclassmen would come in and they'd beat the shit out of me basically.
No shit.
Yeah. And so he called one for one of these, and he was like, all right, Wright became a man last night, and stood up for himself, and so we're not going to pick on him the same way that we used to, like we're going to go easy on him or whatever. And so that like that moment like sparked, like I was like 14 probably when this happened, and my roommate was 18, and he was like taking all these supplements, probably steroids, and was on the weightlifting team. And this guy was
Pretty big dude.
big dude, and he was our CO, he was our CO, our commanding officer. And so yeah, man, like it was like that was such like and I had been
It's pretty intense, man.
it was it was like
For
a
what?
pretty profound experience,
But I
right?
mean,
Like
you were 16?
not even 14. I was like
14.
14, 15, yeah, when this happened.
Damn.
And so like, it was just like a really empowering moment for me, and I was like, okay, there's something to this like grappling thing, and so when so I basically got kicked out of military school. My mom passed away while I was living there. And uh my dad sent me right back. Basically, most of the time when a kid loses a parent at military school, they just pull them.
Yeah, right. It's like, well, I mean, in the Navy they do like, well, yeah, I understand. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
but they don't come back. No,
Oh,
I mean I'm saying
oh,
like
wow.
they usually leave and they don't come back. But my dad kept me there, and I was just like super angry, super depressed. Got into
Altercation.
one or two altercations.
Mhm.
Yeah, like you really can't fight at military school. I mean, you can't. Yeah, what am I talking about? Of course you can.
Well,
There's a lot
yeah,
of fighting.
yeah,
There's a lot of fighting.
after hours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And they got like one drill instructor that's like watching over like 70 kids,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So they don't give a shit. And so yeah, so stuff was going on all the time. But anyways, I was very depressed, got in a bunch of fights, and my drill instructor ultimately was like I tripped in the hallway, got super pissed off at me, and I cursed him out, and he was like, "That's it, right? I got you. You got to go see the commandant. I'm getting you kicked out." And I was like, "Okay, whatever, dude." And he called my dad basically while I was at the commandant, who was like, "Yeah, you're fine. Like weekend PT, no big deal. Go back to your barracks." And my drill instructor, when I got back, this really stupid big guy, and he goes, "I did it right. I got you kicked out." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I called your dad and told him you were getting kicked out, and so he pulled you because you can't go back to, if you get kicked out of Marine Military Academy, you can't go back to public school in Texas.
Wow.
And so my dad wanted to send me to public school at that, or like he knew he would have to send me to public school initially. Like he couldn't immediately put me in a private school. And so, so he pulls me, and I found out about my stepmom. You know, he had been dating her for like it just happened really quickly. And anyways, we didn't get along when all that happened, and so
but at the same time, you're still training, right?
No,
or no?
Yeah, so after the I was just filling in the story, I guess, but after military school, I went back to public school, and they had wrestling, so that was my next step into martial arts, right?
Well, what school was this?
West Side High School.
Where's that at?
It's over off of Briar Forest. It's like
okay,
just north of the Energy Corridor, kind of, or west of the Energy Corridor.
Okay,
near Highway 6.
But it was still HISD or no?
Yeah,
it was HISD. Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's. I think it's the only public school at the time. It was the only public school in the school district that had wrestling at all.
Yeah, because when I got into the military, there was a lot of guys, a lot of dudes. I mean, they were just natural wrestlers. And I've talked about it in the podcast before. There was a best friend of mine, and then it's all there. I mean, this guy was from Tennessee, I guess, like mid. They're just, it's almost like basketball up there.
Yeah, so it's funny because my dad wrestled in high school, and because he's from Iowa, and that's what you do if you're from Iowa, you wrestle. But he just like didn't have a big connection to it, and he I guess he didn't like it very much. And so when I joined the wrestling team, he was not very supportive.
Really?
Yeah, I actually
I can understand that, but yeah.
Well, it's funny because okay, this is dumb, but I had plastic surgery on my ears because my ears used to stick out, and that was one of the things that kids used to make fun of me for, and I used to get in fights about.
Yeah.
And so I had just recently got my ears pinned, right? And so my dad was like, now you're going to join the freaking wrestling team and get cauliflower ear? And I was like, yeah. Basically, I don't care about all the money that you just spent on getting my ears fixed for me, you know?
Yeah.
So that was my next, step into martial arts. And then,
and at this age, you're at what, at West Side High School? So
16.
at West Side, 16.
I was 16 at West Side, and then I only stayed there one semester. I only wrestled there one semester. I was actually a terrible wrestler, by the way. I don't mean to make it sound like I was a badass wrestler, because I was not. I had my head and arm throw from judo. My wrestling coach hated that. He was like, that's an 8th grade move. You don't do that in high school wrestling. And I was like, it's my only takedown. What do you want me to do? And because he wouldn't teach us, they just really, we practiced shots. We didn't practice finishes, on the takedowns. And so like I had a great shot, and I was really good at taking the back. So I was an okay defensive wrestler. I had a decent sprawl. I was a decent defensive wrestler, but yeah, I didn't get a lot of direction. He didn't care for me because he thought I just joined the team because I was dating the team manager at the time or whatever. The girl that like does the towels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I got one semester of wrestling in high school. I guess I had the top spot on the JV squad, but that didn't mean anything. Like our varsity wrestler was way better than I was. So
would y'all just compete with each other, or or
no? So you wrestle for your spot every week, right?
Oh, okay.
Like, so if there's like 4 guys on the team that are in your weight class, you always wrestle for like the varsity spot or the JV spot, right? And I could never beat the varsity guy, so I was just 125-pound JV wrestler basically.
That's small though.
Yeah, I was. I'm a skinny dude.
Yeah.
Like I didn't.
Well, but I'm saying at 16,
Yeah, well, and it took me years to put on what little muscle I have now. So
same here, man.
It's I'm just kind of like naturally lean.
Well, but I say it works out better in the long run.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. So that was high school wrestling, and then fast forward a couple of years, I get out of high school. I went to that program I told you about that they had all those documentaries about on Netflix,
Oh yeah.
and that was a terrible experience. Sort of got kicked out of there as well, even though I was 18. So like technically, they just asked me to leave, right? But anyways, I get out of there, and because they had to sort of kick me out, which was bullshit, anyways. But
How old were you then again?
I was 18, so
Okay, so
I
you're
just turned
yeah.
18.
Oh, okay, so then now
So
yeah.
when I went to this program, I was I just come out of what they call a wilderness therapy program. So I went to this place where you live in the woods for 4.5 months. And there's no civilization for 60 miles in any direction, and you go hiking every day, and you learn all these survival techniques and stuff like that. And you
But these are the places where they try to be hardcore on you too, right?
so yeah, so the one I went to, they had like a therapy element to it, which was like, I think, a better way of doing it, because I actually ultimately really enjoyed the experience. Initially I was pissed, obviously, and then the first couple of weeks were miserable because you've never lived in the woods like that before, and you're learning to adapt to a whole new lifestyle, and they want you to figure a lot of things out on your own.
Wow.
So like, for example, I ate raw rice the first 3 nights I was there, because I didn't know how to cook. So
Raw. That's
just like raw rice, yeah, and a couple of like semi-cooked potatoes. Like, I'd never cooked anything in my life, like literally. And the first night you're there, they give you like food rations or whatever, and you got to cook this meal.
So they were just like figured out.
They're like, figure it out, yeah, on this, like, this little fire in the woods, like, yeah. And the first night I got there, it was kind of funny. Like, they blindfold you, they drive you 60 miles into the middle of the woods, so it takes like an hour to get out there. And then when you get out there, there's like a little group of
Damn.
dirty Lord of the Flies kids that are all like hairy and dirty, and like boys and girls. And like, you know the girls were like so gross. Like, they're
Can you say the name? Like what it was at
oh
the
yeah,
time?
it's called Red Cliff Ascent
Okay.
Wilderness Therapy Program. It's in oh god, it's in the Wawa mountain chain in Utah.
Oh, Utah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So I got like kidnapped and flown out to
Wait,
Utah.
So wait, you got kidnapped?
Yeah. So
Oh no, okay, no, because that's what you were saying. It was one of those things where the night thing, right?
so in my case, my dad just kind of convinced me to go to this building with him, and
And
when
you were 18 then, no? Or
no, I was
no, 16.
16 when I
Okay.
got
Yeah,
sent to
yeah.
the wilderness
That's
therapy
okay.
program. So this is pre
Yeah.
other program,
Yeah.
right? So there's this whole like chain of programs. So I think we spoke about that a little bit
Yeah.
earlier, but yeah, this is but yeah, so like we drive up to this building, and there's like a black SUV in the parking lot and nothing else, and he pulls right up next to it so close that I can't open my door, and he puts the car in park, and he's like, I'm sorry, these guys are here to take you. And yeah, they took me and flew me to Utah. They were actually really nice. But they were two ex-cops, and they were like, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And basically the hard way is they're going to zip tie you and like drag you through the airport, and they're cops. So like, what is
So are
anybody
they
going to do?
retired or they're actual cops?
They're retired, but they have like, I don't know, like some kind of like
Like deputized
security
or clearance.
deputy, yeah, something like that. Because it's from like, my dad has to like sign a bunch of paperwork and stuff for them to do it. So.
And they're like, hey, did they just that kid is in a zip tie? And like, no, like mind your business.
Well, they didn't. They luckily they didn't
They
zip
didn't have
tie
to.
me. Yeah, they were like,
Oh, okay.
I was smart enough to be like, okay, what's the easy way? And they were like, well, the easy way is we will buy you whatever you want the whole way there. Like literally anything. I made them buy me a CD player just to like stick it to my dad a little bit, like get them to spend some money. It was not cheap at the airport, as you can imagine. So,
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was petty. Like, it was no, by the time I landed in Utah and I realized I would be out there for like several months, I was like, holy shit. Like,
I mean, did it already sink in at that point that I guess I'm far and I don't know anybody here?
Man, looking back, I can't believe how calm I was.
I mean, that's what, but
Like I I was just like, okay, whatever, I guess,
I would
and
say,
like,
but you had already been kind of
I mean,
bouncing
I was
around.
pissed. I was,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
oh yeah. I ran away from home at that point.
But I'm saying, so this was, I feel maybe you took it as in this is just another chapter that it's gonna figure out what's gonna happen now, and
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you don't have an option. Like,
yeah, yeah, that's
you
what I'm
know what I'm
saying.
saying? Like, I do remember having a major panic attack the first night I was there. I literally woke up in the middle of the night. I felt like my back was on fire, and I remember like running out of the tent and like, you know, you can't, like, if you go anywhere, you have to, like, they give you a number and you have to call your number,
Yeah.
like, so that they know where you're at. Like, if you have to go to the bathroom or something in the middle of the night. But yeah, I was like having a full blown panic attack that first night, and then
Well, I mean, I think I would too. I mean, you get misplaced. I mean, you're pretty much, yeah, you're on your own.
yeah, no, I mean, well, I mean,
I'm saying I would think that would be kind of a normal reaction. I don't think it's not normal for
yeah, well, and then you're faced with the reality of like, okay, I live a pretty pampered life, all things considered, um, and then you're in Utah in the woods
Yeah.
with, like, and you're just gonna figure out how to hike. First of all, like, hiking in the mountains is no easy task, and that's your lifestyle now. Like, you're basically nomadic. They basically have you pack up your campsite every day, you roll it up into a tarp, put it on your back, and then we're going hiking basically.
Wow.
And it's a pretty intense physical experience. And like the first 3 weeks are unbelievably miserable. Like, when I first got there, it was like tail end of winter, I think.
Yeah.
And so it was really cold, snow everywhere. First night I was there, woke up in 2 feet of snow. And then there was like, it was also really rainy
Right.
for several weeks. And when you're living under a tarp, you know, nothing stays dry when it rains for a week straight. So there were several days of that, like, never getting dry,
Mm-hmm.
throughout the experience. And then you're on like a limited diet. You have like food rations for the week. You get like 2 meat drops a week. You get, rice and lentils. You get oats with freeze dried milk. You get some um, trail mix. Like, it's very meager.
But I mean, but at the same time, I would say it's also like with you don't even know that you're being trained, but you're kind of being mentally trained for. I mean, I don't. I mean, I'm saying indirectly, you don't. I mean, you're wising up. You're like you said, you're learning how to ration. You're learning how to manage when they drop off those drops and do with what. I mean, I would have at that age. I don't know what the hell to do.
Well, yeah, I
I
mean,
was so used to my mom cooking for me. No bullshit.
yeah, well, and that's, and actually it kind of sparked my fondness for cooking too. I love cooking now. Like, it's like
Yeah.
a big part of my life. And you know, um yeah, it's a I learned a lot from all the, schools that I went to, boarding school, the military school, the program boarding school, living in the woods. All of those were really profound
Hmm.
experiences, and I went through a lot of,
Wow.
soul searching. And you know I dealt with a lot of stuff. Obviously, my mom died. my
Yeah.
my dad got remarried, and my stepmom and I didn't get along initially.
Yeah.
And so that took a lot of work. And I certainly wouldn't be the person I am today without it. At the same time, I probably wouldn't wish it on like my worst enemy.
No,
Like,
of course not.
it was just a really tough experience. So, but yeah, I think that, once I got through all that and I was living on my own, we spoke about, not having purpose or direction earlier. I
Hmm.
had nothing. And I was living with a bunch of my friends who I'm still really good friends with today. But we were just at a really low point in our lives. And we were living, you know we were broke as hell. We were partying all the time, just, not doing nothing productive. Most of us lost our jobs, we're hopping around jobs all the time.
What age was this? Around
18,
18.
18,
Okay.
19, 19, 19.
Okay.
I lived when I was 18. I lived with my grandma in Iowa, and then I moved back to Houston at 19. And
then at this time, you weren't, like you said, you weren't even training. You weren't even thinking nothing of it.
no, not at all.
Not at all.
And yeah, so I mean, for sure, I missed martial arts, but I knew I was flat broke. Like, what was I going to do? I couldn't go train anything. And we were actually having a party for a buddy of mine's birthday, and we ordered a UFC pay-per-view, and I just like fell in love that night. I think it was if I'm not mistaken, it was the Ultimate Fighter season 1 finale combo with it was like the main event was Tito Ortiz versus Ken Shamrock.
Oh shit.
Number 2 or whatever.
Oh, damn.
And it's funny because like all my buddies are either Irish or Scottish at the time, and so we would so anyways, we were of course rooting for Ken Shamrock, right? And obviously Tito whooped his ass, but but also Forrest Griffin versus Stephen Bonner was on that card as well, and that fight blew me away the same way that it blew away millions of people across the world. And that I knew right then, I was like, okay, holy shit, like I've been doing martial arts my whole life, but like doing like karate and like stuff like that, or even like wrestling or judo, which are great practical martial arts, but they are limited in that there's a rule set, right? And then I saw this and I was like, in my brain, it was just like making my brain explode. I was like, these guys are fighting for real. And these are like this is the most practical way to fight. It's not like fluffy, judo, kung fu and like, cool, but I want practical,
Yeah.
And when it comes to like fists, boxing is superior, right? Like to, this stuff, and kicking is, even more lethal in some ways, right? And so I was just, and then they were kneeing each other, and I was like, oh my God, this is like, I have to try this. And so, 2 weeks later, I joined Militich Fighting Systems here in Houston. So which is no longer, but
and what year was that, you said? Or
oh God, it was geez, I don't even know. 2021.
Oh,
it was
wow.
like really might have even been 19, man. No, it hadn't been 2021, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was 2021, something like that. Joined Militich Fighting Systems. 2 weeks into it, I was like, this is it. Like, I have to do this. And I was like fully committed. The Militich was very much like an old school MMA gym. So you get like some ground and pound stuff, and kickboxing, and some basic jiu-jitsu, but mostly just like submissions, and so like my first year and a half, like I basically just dove on submissions because all the guys were like 55 and above, right? Because they didn't have 55 and below weight classes at the time. And all my and back in the day, most MMA fighters were like tough guys, right? Like, and so they were all like juiced, or they were like 185 pounds and up, I mean, just like really big guys. And so I was like a little guy training with giants, basically.
Yeah.
So I just got really used to like attacking submissions relentlessly, right? Even my wrestling and judo experience, like it didn't help me get takedowns. It was like pulling guard a lot,
Right. Yeah.
So that was kind of how like my early career kind of like transition. Then I was supposed to get my first amateur fight, and then that gym closed down. I was looking for another gym. A former teammate of mine knew about this place, Paradigm Training Center, and they had just opened probably a year before.
Wow.
And they had, but the thing that really attracted me was they had a wrestling program, right?
Mm.
No other MMA gym had like a wrestling program,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I knew how important wrestling was, and I knew how important it was to have like a program, not just teach wrestling, right?
Right.
It's one thing to teach wrestling, but when you have a wrestling program, it's just so hard to explain until you've wrestled, right? Like
Yeah, I've never
it's just
wrestled.
it's the way they structure the classes. Um, you know, it's you come in, you do your warm-ups, then you start drilling,
Mm-hmm.
and then you typically do like two positions,
Mm-hmm.
and then you drill them relentlessly,
Mm-hmm.
and then you wrestle hard live at the end.
Wow.
And then there's like usually a little extra conditioning, like some sprints or something,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're done, right?
Wow. And that's like an hour right there. Or...
Yeah, hour 25, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you also have like morning runs usually.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would have like a weightlifting session after
Wow.
practice too, right? So it's a really tough sport, you know, and it really instills grit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to be tough to do wrestling. But if you just practice moves,
Mm-hmm.
right, you're only going to get so good at wrestling, because a good wrestler is just going to just blow right through you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think it's the main reason why I'm still at Paradigm Training Center, right? Is we are still one of the only MMA gyms that has a legitimate wrestling program.
Right.
And I think it's so important. So anyways, I joined, and G was the kickboxing coach who I had met at Militich. He had come there with some kid that was really good,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like holding pads for the kid, and I was like, oh God, I gotta be able to do that, you know? And so
you were like, this is another thing I need to add to my belt. I was like,
yes, 100%.
but I mean, at that point, you've added how to eat, you added judo, you, like you're saying, all these things. So I mean, I would say, I mean, I mean, at that point, you're probably already maturing kind of early than most. Because even at that point, I mean, when I was 2021, all I was doing is getting drunk.
Yeah, well, that
I mean,
was me. That was me too until I joined. And then actually, it was funny because I was like flat broke when I joined,
uh-huh.
and I was like, they were like, it's $100 a month. I was like, how the hell am I going to come up with $100 a month? And you know, I couldn't even pay my electric bill. You know, I was like, so it made me go get a job and get serious about my job so that I could be consistent. And it really, like, it kind of saved me in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
You
man.
know, I was super serious about it, and I just kind of like went all in. And you know, despite the fact that some of my later mentors were like, you got to have a fallback, you got to have a fallback. I just was like obsessed. I was so obsessed, you know. And I think that's part of what made me successful as an amateur. You know, like I remember my first. I just felt like I wanted it more than everybody I was fighting. You know, it's just like it didn't matter. You know, like my third fight, I fought this kid, David Armas, who's still fighting to this day. Crazy, you know, he's got 40 fights. I mean, he's mostly,
wow.
You know, he's lost a lot of those fights, but
yeah.
But anyways,
Still in the game though.
Yeah, but this was like his second amateur fight, my third amateur fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like we were both very fresh. He was very strong. He'd been doing a lot of weights, and he missed weight by like 3 pounds. So he's way bigger, way stronger than me. And if you watch the fight, you can see, I mean, he looks like a fully muscled man, and I look like a twig. And because we were fighting 135 pounds.
Yeah.
And every punch he hit me with, I was like blacking out. I just could not. I couldn't stay with him. His strength was like ridiculous, you know, and I couldn't take him down because he just felt so strong, you know, when I'd clinch up with him, even though he had terrible technique.
Dude, you were maintaining?
I was just able to hang on, basically. and I was kind of clinging on for dear life,
Yeah.
And then, at the end of the first round, he ends up on top of me, and I put him in a triangle, and like literally like right on the buzzer. Like I hold it, I'm trying to pull his head down, buzzer. Okay, go back to our corners, right? And I'd had an adrenaline dump too. Like when we came out and touched gloves, I landed an inside low kick, and when I went back to my corner, body's just shutting down. I mean, just like the full adrenaline rush. Arms felt like noodles, throats in the bottom of my stomach and all that.
Wow.
And so anyway, so the second round, was more of just like clinging on for dear life. I literally pulled guard, I think twice in this fight.
Yeah.
In an attempt to get him back in my guard, because I knew I could triangle him. I was like, triangle this bozo all day, but he just kept hitting me with that big right hand, and just like everything, I just was blacking out every time. Anyways, go back to my corner, third round, and I tell my corner, shout out to Brian Melanson, just an epic guy, like really unbelievable guy. But I go, I got nothing left, man. And he goes, fuck that. He's like, you go out there, you find a way to win. He's like, you train with way better guys.
Yeah.
And so he was like, this guy's loading up in his right hand. Just time him on the right hand, hit him with the counter, jump on his back, find a submission. You gotta go out there and you gotta find it. And sure enough, my arms were starting to come back a little bit. Guy goes to throw that big right hand. He's gassed. I mean, he's so gassed. He whiffs on it, just like, and I threw like a little throwaway little like check hook, caught him behind the ear, and my arm like slipped around his back, and I jumped on his back. He rolled through, he's trying to fight me off. I settle in on the back, I wear him like a backpack, trying to hit him from behind, soften him up, try to get the choke in.
Yeah.
Can't get my arms anywhere near it because he keeps sticking his thumb in my finger or in my glove. And I was like, ref, he keeps putting his finger in my glove. And so anyways, I hear the 30-second clapper, and they're like, you got to go for something else. It's not working. You got to go for something else. And I was I probably was losing the fight at this point, right? Like I was definitely almost definitely down on the scorecards. And in like the last like 10 seconds, I transitioned off to like an arm bar. I went for it. I got it. I put everything into it. I was trying to rip his freaking arm off, and he tapped out. And it was I think that was the fight where I was like, okay, I can do this. I definitely have to get better at some things, but I can do this. Like I just want this so bad, and that was kind of like where my initial success in MMA was, because I had a great amateur. You can't ask for a better amateur career. I went 6-0. I won 3 titles in 2 different states.
Hell yeah.
They had this publication called thecagedor.net back in the day. I was their amateur fighter of the year 2 years in a row, pound for pound, not even like,
yeah.
So
well deserved though.
Well, thank you. But amateurs were nothing compared to what they are now, but I also went 0-2 as a pro. So, I came out the gates and like really hit a stumbling block right off the bat.
Yeah.
My first fight, I fought Gerzon Chaw and kind of underestimated him. Took the fight on 3.5 weeks notice after another fight that a Muay Thai fight that I had. And I just really wasn't focused. And a lot of my mentors, we were going through like head coaches, and we had gone through like 3 of them in the span of like a year, I think.
Oh wow.
Or something like that. And so I was just like, I didn't really have a connection with my corner, and didn't feel like they were super behind me. And but it not that I'm not trying to blame them at all.
Oh no.
It was 100% my fault. But
right.
Just to explain where I was at mentally.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, I beat the crap out of this kid in the first round. Was just kickboxing the crap out of him. And then in the second round, I was beating him up some more, but I was getting tired. And I was like, I need to get on top, just beat him up, because we had had a grappling tournament together. I knew I was like,
You had him.
I
Yeah,
won. I had won I'd won that match, and he locked up an armbar, and I just like it was deep, and he was tight on it, and I was like, I just had like a complete brain fart on how to even defend an armbar because I was so used to dominating on top, and I just didn't get caught in them in training, and I hadn't been really training as consistently as I normally had. Anyways,
Yeah.
so I lost that fight, and then I immediately took the next fight they offered me, which was Ricky Tercius, who is the Ultimate Fighter winner, and also at the time was another guy that had done really well as an amateur. I think he was 5-1, or might have even been undefeated.
Yeah.
And you know, he was a wrestler, high school wrestler, and he was known for his cardio. And I was like, I didn't know anything about him.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew it was a legacy fight, which is was at the time the biggest promotion, you know, in Houston, but also, you know, I think at that point they probably had nationwide success. I think they were on HDNet Fights or something like
Right.
that, which was like a cable publication. And so I was like, man, that, you know, I got to take
you
that
get exposure.
opportunity. And it was a tough fight. It was back and forth. And, you know, in the first round, I caught him with a head kick.
Oh, nice.
I was boxing him up. He went for a takedown. Oh no, sorry. So after I landed the head kick, I went for another one and loaded up on it and slipped. And then he took my back, you know, did some little pitter patter to the back of my head. Didn't really do much, but he definitely controlled, I guess, a greater portion of that round. And these are 3-minute rounds. In your first couple of pro fights in Texas, they used to do 3-minute rounds, which is I hated because I felt like I was like a distance fighter, you know. I was always going to be better in like championship rounds, you know, because of the way I trained a little bit more like aerobically than I probably should have. I probably should have been doing a little bit more explosive training.
Right.
So I was always trying to take dudes into deep waters or like drown dudes or catch them in submissions and stuff. And I felt like that took time to set up or to get into a position where you can, you know, get to a submission or something. And so anyways, you know, the fight ended. I mean, it was a really good fight. I mean, I think, you know, we probably won fight of the night or something like that. We, you know, a lot of my early fights, it was like that, you know, submission of the night or, you know, fight of the night or fight, you know, I even won fight of the year as an amateur.
The one that caught my eye was what's his last name? Or is it?
Oh, Ray Trujillo.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a pro fight, but yeah, that's a funny story because,
but a lot of rolling around too, though, at the end, right?
Yeah.
From what
So okay. So we were talking about my knee injury earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That knee injury happened right before this fight.
Oh.
It was 3 weeks. I was 3 weeks out, and I was training with Justin Riceberg, who is a tremendous guy, by the way. I know he did not mean to do this, but he went for a takedown from the back, and he twisted me over my own knee, and I heard it pop in like 3 places. And I had previously torn my LCL. It was my LCL. I knew it instantly. It was my LCL because I'd torn it before. And so going into the Trujillo fight, I was super banged up, really badly injured, barely could walk on my right leg. And but I had trained with Ray when I was an amateur still. And he had come in, and at the time, Ray was so before he fought me. When I trained with him as an amateur, he was the #1 pound for pound fighter in Houston. He was the 145 and 155 pound champion for Legacy. And,
wow.
You know, so, and he was like 9-0 or something like that.
So you were eyeing him.
Not, sort of like you knew you were going to have to come. I never thought in a million years I would have fought. Like when I first had that first training session with him, I never thought in a million years I'd be in a position where I would fight him. Right. But in that training session, what I learned was that he had 0 submission defense. I submitted him like 16 times in our training session. Like, and I was an amateur. He was the undefeated, you know, pro. I was like, how is this guy like, so, you know, like whatever. So, and he was like I said, he was the 155 and 145 pound champion. I was still fighting at 35 at the time, so I thought there's no way we ever collide, you know. And so fast forward several years, I eventually moved up to 45. My last fight at 35, I fought Adrian Yanez, which was another banger fight, and he's, you know what, 6-1, 6-2 in the UFC. Like, I mean,
he's up there.
Yeah. So I had a really good fight with him, but I just knew for my weight cut, I was like, I can't fight at 35 anymore. You know, it's just like too big of a cut. I was cutting from 65 to 35. We still didn't have, like, I think it's still doable. Like, if like I had like the help of UFC PI or some like really good nutritionist or something like that, but at the time that just wasn't feasible. So I moved up to 45. Lost my first fight at 45, Jake Heffernan. And was in a really rough place because I had basically gone from 0-2 to 5-2. So I went on a 5-fight win streak. Then I fought Adrian Yanez, lost that fight. Went up to 45, fought Jake Heffernan, lost that fight, right? So I lost 2 in a row again. And so I was in a really rough place. Randomly, my amateur my former manager, Rich Burmaster, who works for Fury now, calls me up. He's like, "Hey, you ready to fight for a title in Louisiana?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, hell yeah!" So, so I fought Kendrick Williams. Obviously, that went well.
Yeah,
I won that fight.
That's a crazy hematoma.
Yeah, that was great.
That was an elbow, or
it was an elbow. Yeah, it was from the first round. I had gotten into mount, and I started raining down some elbows on him. He was turning over, and mid turnover, I hit a really nice elbow right on the bridge of his eyebrow. I wish it had cut him, but sorry, Kendrick.
With all due respect, you know,
with all due respect. But yeah, so, but it was funny because you know, it was pretty significant. But so anyway, so I'd won that, and then Fury Eric gave me the opportunity to fight for the 145-pound title, which brought me to Ray, right? So I was like, man, that's like crazy.
Like flip around.
Yeah.
Like, you never, like you said, you never.
Yeah. Like when I was like 4-5-0, whatever, amateur, 135 pounds, never thought I'd be fighting this guy, you know.
And you knew, and because you knew his style, you knew kind of.
I knew I could beat him on my worst day. You know what I mean? So that's why, even though I was like super injured going into it, I knew I would win. So I was like, okay, I can't like give up on this opportunity, right?
And just to know, was it kind of secretive, or you weren't saying nothing, obviously? Or
no, of course I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
I might have mentioned something to Eric and like said like, hey, look, my knee's really bad. I may pull out, but I don't. I mean, obviously, it wasn't. I didn't. So you know, it wasn't that serious of a conversation,
right?
And Ray's a wild dude, right? Like we were both struggling to make weight. It was the middle of winter, and like the saunas were working, but like when you go from a really hot area into like a very cold area, it makes you stop sweating. It's really difficult to get a sweat going and keep it going. So, anyways, we're really both struggling. I don't know why. I think he did some inconspicuous things, or I mean, conspicuous things to make weight, but whatever. That's his own business. But it was really interesting. I finally made it. He was like 0.2 or 3 over, right? And it's a title fight, so you have to make right on the money, 145 pounds on the money. Wow. And he goes, oh, takes his wedding band off, and then he gets back on there, and he's like 0.1 over, and they're like, he goes, he pops his 2 front teeth out, hands it to his girlfriend or whatever, and hops back on the scale, makes championship weight.
Wow.
He's grinning. He's got his 2 front teeth missing. So yeah, he's a wild dude. But yeah, I think the thing that surprised me about that fight was like, you know, he's a very explosive striker, but I felt very in control on the feet. Like I didn't feel like I wasn't worried at all. He hit me with like a Superman punch that like blackened my eye, but other than that, like it was
Mhm.
just and then I felt like I could pretty much get my takedowns at will. But again, because due to my injuries, I was not in the best shape. Like I definitely wasn't in 5-round shape, and so I knew I had
I
to.
know that was a 5-round one.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I finished
Man.
it in the second. So we
Man.
were having some like good back and forth exchanges and like kind of sequences and stuff. But I went out in the second round. At the beginning of the second round, I start to circle to my right,
Mhm.
and my knee was giving out on me, and so I was like, okay, I gotta
Go this
go the other way. So I circled into his power hand, despite my best intentions. But and I think I don't know, I don't even remember, but like we hit a flurry or something. He may have I might have gone for a takedown, and I think he countered. I might have hit a judo throw or something, but we ended up on my back. And I remember making the conscious decision. Like I was like, okay, I can either wall walk here
Mhm.
or I can chill in my guard.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm chilling in my guard. And so I set up that triangle choke. I probably have more finishes by triangle choke than any other finish on my record. So I knew that
Awesome.
yeah, I knew that I could land it. And it's funny because like
He was quick to submit too. I did notice that. Because once you
uh
got him, well, I mean, you I believe once you got him,
once I got it very tight.
and
Like
then I mean, he was just like, I mean, because I know some guys they usually just wait and they're like, think I don't know, they're still trying to work, but no, he was like,
well, yeah. So it was on my second or third attempt on the triangle, right? The first one or two he shut down. I think he shut down 2 of them. And so he's probably feeling pretty confident.
mm-hmm,
And he actually made a mistake. He went the wrong way. Like there's a way to like turn out of a triangle, right? And
mm-hmm,
he went the wrong way, and he landed right in my triangle. And I think, and I do definitely pride myself on the details on the triangle. And one thing that I do that like a lot of people don't, real jiu-jitsu guys know this,
mm-hmm,
but I feel like a lot of MMA guys may not. But like you're supposed to angle off. Like a lot of people stay square on the head and then
mm-hmm,
just pull down on the head, which is like serviceable.
mm-hmm,
But when I rotate sideways like that, and then I like bring my knees together like this, I'm basically creating a vice on either side of your neck,
mm-hmm,
and like I'm bringing the arm across with it.
mm-hmm,
So the reason it's called a triangle choke, obviously, is I'm making a triangle with my legs.
mm-hmm.
I want to kill the triangle. I want to like completely
Yeah,
make it disappear
right.
so that there's no space whatsoever, right? And then when I pull down on your head, there's really, really no space. Like, so I'm not super surprised he tapped early because, first of all, I think it's pretty painful and stressful to be in a choke, but also the choke
Yeah.
happened so quickly that he probably felt like he didn't have any choice because he there's a really cool photo actually of me standing up with my hands like this, and he's like laying flat on his back, and he looks like he's been knocked out unconscious.
I mean, we can show it. I got it. I mean, or the
Okay.
ending of it. I mean, I mean, it's up to you.
I mean, yeah, okay, sure.
Hold on. I got this one. Oh, I gotta, I mean, like I said, when you started talking about it, I was like, yeah. I think, yeah. Boom. I mean,
Triangle choke finish. Colin Wright, your new Fury featherweight champion.
I had just finished watching it.
Yeah, Ray's okay.
Yeah, I like to go back and watch my fights every once in a
Yeah,
while.
did a good job putting his head against the cage to keep him getting arm.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good.
Generally not looking to rounder. Where that one-shot power is there, and Ray Trujillo has it. He's got it.
That's my
He's
boxing
got it
coach,
at
Aaron
55,
Navarro.
and even more so 45 because he can knock these 55ers out. And and Colin is just tough and trains hard and is crisp. I've done some training with Colin, and he's got a technically sound fighter. I've actually cornered against Colin twice, fought two of my teammates, and
Yeah,
never
that's
got to
Alex
finish.
Morano.
Had
I've
to win
never
decisions. Colin's
beaten
tough.
one of Alex
Colin's good.
Morano's students, and it irks me very badly.
I'd say
Really?
Colin
Yeah,
may be
I
the slight
love
favorite
Alex.
to win this fight.
He's
What
a
do you
great
think,
guy.
AJ?
But yeah, that irks me. Never beaten one of his fighters.
There's guys where I thought it was a bad matchup for Ray, and then he just
Bringing back memories, huh?
Oh yeah,
Ray's another one of those guys. If you look
yeah.
at his
Ray's
record,
wild. He does like a
you might not
jumping
think much
split
of him.
off the stage
You know,
here,
he's,
which is pretty impressive because he was already. I mean, he's like,
updated. He's 21 and
I don't
21.
know. I think he was like 39 in this fight or something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe I'm way overstating that. Maybe
But where is he now?
I think he's still fighting, dude. I mean, this guy's nuts. He's like got 60.
Because I've heard that name, right? I mean,
Dude, yeah, he fights in Louisiana a lot because I think they don't really care about fighter safety and they'll let anybody fight anybody with a
so
pulse.
is that how it goes over there then, in a way?
Yeah.
Kind of almost like backyard, almost like in a way, right?
No, look, I don't want to speak too poorly about the commission out there because
No. I mean,
commissions across the United States are horrible. Like it's just a unanimously terrible thing. But I will say this: I had a fight in Louisiana, amateur title fight. Dustin Poirier cornered against me actually. Him and Tim Crater
hell
in
yeah.
that fight. But I showed up to weigh-ins and they were like, "All right, where's your paperwork?" And I handed them my paperwork and they were like, "This is too old." And they were like, "This is 6 months too old." And I was like, "Oh shit!" I had grabbed the wrong paperwork on my way out.
Oh damn.
And so yeah, they I was like, "Oh, I will just like fax it to you guys in the morning." Like meaning the day after the fight. And they were like, "Okay, whatever.
Cool.
So you could have HIV or like whatever. No big deal. Just go ahead and fight." By the way, I'm gonna probably have to end this fight after this fight. But
No, definitely. No, I got you.
Yeah.
Because we had to hit just an hour, so
Perfect.
and so we're I wanted to get the nice full screen. Okay, perfect. Let me go.
That's Wayne Leggett.
Yeah, he's still doing it.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. He's such a nice guy. Every time I see him, he's just so nice.
But Colin, man, I would say, dude, your story is very unique, man. I mean, it speaks for itself. I mean, damn. I mean, what you got yourself into, your record. I mean, yeah, man. I mean, you're a goat.
Maybe in Houston MMA, but yeah. No, I mean, I
mean, you know your stuff. I feel it takes, like you said, a lot of dedication to put all that together. Just when the way you describe on seeing little quirks and then
yeah,
remembering things, like when you came to this fight, you're just remembering all, just pretty much,
well, yeah, I mean, it was such a huge part of my life for so long, and it still is, always will be. It's just something I'm a fan that became a fighter,
right.
Not like it's one of those kind of stories, and so I still watch every freaking UFC event, and like like I said, I coach, and I have aspirations to have one or two more,
Yeah, why not?
because you can only do it for so long, and I'm my last two fights I lost, and I'm not comfortable with retiring on a loss, so um,
Well, man, I hope you still stay at it, and I appreciate everything you've done for the community. I mean, I all I can say, I've never done any smokers. I've definitely trained with a lot of the guys you've trained though. I've sparred with some of them, and that's been interesting. But I'm glad you're out there to help other people. Because like I said, man, you have a unique story, and it was kind of interesting. Just going through it all, and then now pretty much I'd say final product.
Yeah.
So
It's funny because I feel like there are so many holes in in these fights. Like I look back and of course there are some things I'm like, oh yeah, that was great. Like, good job, Colin. Pat myself on my back, But there's a lot that just it really irks me. I feel like I think I think the other reason I want to get back in there so badly is I feel like I never really presented 100% my best.
Mhm.
Like I feel like I feel like like I wish I had finished more fights. There were a few
Right.
fights that I let slip through my fingers where I was fighting a little bit almost too defensively, like fighting not to get finished, and I should have been fighting for my own finish,
Mhm.
and then just like my last few fights, I just was not I was not in good headspace. I was not in a good place mentally or physically, and that's so important.
Nice knee, nice knees.
Thank you. It's funny looking back on this. I realize now how small my frame really was for 45. Like Ray's not a huge 45er.
Yeah, he's actually shorter than you, isn't
Yeah, and that's another thing that shows you how far the sport's come, right? Like I said, when I first started, that was that was
Yeah.
one of those things. I was like, okay, good job, nice little Uchimata. But yeah, like I said, he was the 155-pound champ in Legacy, and he's not a tremendously huge guy. So, but I look skinny here. I look really skinny. I think after this fight, I ended up meeting my strength and conditioning coach, and that was another thing. Like a lot of things fell into place for me. Like at the end of my career, I met Bob. I knew of Bob, but Bob finally came to like he was originally at 4 ounce, which is like way on the other side of town. So it was really hard for me to get over there. And I felt like a great connection initially, and then when he moved over to actually what it was originally, oh god, it wasn't Heritage, it was Houston Muay Thai. It was Houston Muay Thai, right? It was Michael Corley and Crew Bob, and I started training with him, and that was like, that fell into place. And then I later through one championship fighter, Bean Nguyen, she introduced me to my strength and conditioning coach Terry, and I felt like that fell into place like towards the end of my career. And then just other things were happening that didn't favor me continuing my career, so it was kind of like a weird juxtaposition of things going on,
But dude, I mean, to even work with Bob, dude, that's a big deal, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, I mean, Bob, yeah, especially, I mean, yeah, he's one of those celebrity coaches, I mean, he's a pretty big deal, and he has a tremendous amount of knowledge, and he's so giving, that like being an MMA fighter is not easy, and it is not cheap, and it is difficult to to pay for training. It's difficult to pay for, especially if you want privates. And Bob is just he's so dedicated to his guys, that everybody becomes a tremendous striker. So
wow.
I feel like he helped me put that together. I did already have the boxing in place. I had met my boxing coach a few years prior to that. Shout out to Angel Huerta, introduced me to Aaron Navarro, and I mean, you want to talk about a top-notch dude. I mean, Aaron Navarro is the man. Like he's another guy that just pours his knowledge out there and is like so good at the finer details and like really getting you to perfect your craft. So yeah, I mean, just I felt like I finally found like my niche. It was like Paradigm for the grappling, Main Street, Crew Bob for the striking, Aaron Navarro, who is also at Main Street now, for the boxing, and then and Paradigm had the wrestling, and then we also have Marcus Bello, who is legitimately a legend in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you don't know, go to bjjfanatics.com, look up his bio. He is an absolute legend. Sorry, not BJJ Fanatics. What is it? BJJLegends.com.
Oh wow, okay.
BJJ Legends. He's a legitimate legend in sport. I mean, he has some wins over the best to ever do it.
Yeah, when I see him, I say, "Hello, sir."
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
But it's funny. We Paradigm has literally brought in a ton of black belts straight from Brazil. Like all of our black belts, at least the ones that coach and teach, like they all come straight from Brazil. And some of them are very serious and like have very serious attitudes about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And Marcus is just so sweet and like kind and forgiving and like fatherly. Like he's tough in a fatherly sort of way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, but
That's when I think you were kind of coming around on that end when I saw you a little bit.
yeah, this is when my knees started to give out. You can kind of see, even though I kicked with it.
Maybe it was the late 2000s.
Yeah, see, I was leaning on it there, and he kicked me in the body because
Yeah.
I couldn't put weight on that leg very well.
But yeah, I'm back at Paradigm now. So just like I said, for me, it's just training, just doing the normal kickboxing, Muay Thai, whatever, just, and then I'm not sparring because of this knee injury too. So
yeah, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, that's the thing. For me, it's being in it as long as I had been in it, I feel like I'm like almost addicted to it at this point. So it's a little different for me. But like I think it's great. Like I said before, to give you structure, it gives you discipline. It's an outlet, right? For any stress or anger. It's man, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's everything. Well, I mean, like I said, when I got out of the Navy, I was missing a big part of my my life of just having some structure. And then when I got into that school, man, I mean, it just helped out so much.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, that was what got me into it too. I needed that structure, and it provided that for me. And when I pass this on to other people, that's what I hope for them too. I hope it provides them structure and discipline, and gives them something to focus them. This is that triangle. Oh, this is the first triangle setup. It was it was on the wrong side, so this wasn't quite a triangle. But I was hoping to like elbow him, but he was posturing up really, really good. He sits back to defend.
Oh damn!
He pops out, and this is where I made the mental decision. I knew from our training sessions that I was going to submit him, and so I regained guard, and then
wow,
he goes for it here.
Yeah. But dude, to know all that, I mean, within the milliseconds, the seconds, like, just to, I mean, Colin, you gotta know your stuff. And you definitely know your stuff.
He made a classic mistake here. He goes to posture up to punch, and he leaves one arm in, and that's what gives me the triangle. And I kind of was bringing my guard high to kind of like be in position. Yeah, and kind of go for the arm bar, let him pull that arm out.
Okay. Yeah, you got that right arm.
Yeah, and it was tight.
Boom.
I knew it. Grab the leg so he can't posture out of it.
I think he tries to slam you, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yep. See. Awesome, dude. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, dude, if I was in your shoes, I would miss that shit too, I mean, after that win, I mean, and then like how you're saying that whole story that led up to that, of just what's going on.
Yeah, it was an interesting fight. I'll say one last thing here. He came up to me after the fight, and
is it on here or no?
No, you can't hear it.
Okay.
But he comes up to me after the fight, shakes my hand, and he said in my ear, he goes, "Congratulations," and this was like really prophetic. and really like profound at the time. Looking back now, he says in my ear, he goes, "Great job, congratulations, but you'll never get to the UFC fighting like that." And that really like it fucked with my head. It really fucked with my head.
But
yeah,
I mean,
right here, that's right there. See, right here.
oh, okay. See,
He goes, "You'll never get in the UFC fighting like
off.
that." And I was like, "Damn."
Oh,
He's probably right.
hold on, let me. Yeah, but that's just. I mean, why would you say that? I wouldn't say that.
because he had behavioral issues and he just kind of turned his life around.
I don't know.
When'd you-
I mean,
when'd you- but when'd you say- when'd
he
you-
knew? Well, he knew that the UFC is looking for exciting fighters, and he felt like I kind of just like laid there and like set a trap for him, and instead of like trying to like beat him up or whatever.
Mm.
You know, so.
So I mean, yeah. So you're saying you took it as advice?
Well, I knew I had to be more exciting in my fights.
Okay.
After this, but I didn't really. This was kind of probably the height of my professional career. I guess my next fight after this, I fought Jesse Butler, who's in the UFC now. Is probably my biggest win at 145 pounds. I beat him to defend my title in Louisiana, and then I lost my title in my following fight after COVID. So, yeah.
Well, I think we can. Just want to get that. Bam. There you go, man. That was awesome. Well, I think we can end it on that, Colin, right?
Cool, man.
But appreciate it, Colin, for coming in, bro.
No, thanks for having
I
me.
hope
man.
you can come back again.
Yeah.
Definitely either post fight or pre fight
Let's
for your next one.
Let's do it. Yeah, and maybe in 2 years.
But no, thank you again. And then, like I said, this was, man, you made my night.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks
And like I said, the journey still continues for me. I know definitely I'll recommend everybody to, if they have questions or anything. And like I said, sometimes when y'all would do after, I guess it was Coach G, and I would do advanced kickboxing, and then y'all would be in the corner. What class were you doing over there at that time? MMA or?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm teaching them.
Yeah, I would just sit to the side. I'd be like, yeah, I'm not ready yet. But I mean, like I said, I mean, little by little, so I'll keep it going. But yet again, man, appreciate it. And then let me go ahead and sign off.
Cool, man.
And good luck. And like I said, hopefully we get to do this again. And till next time.
Appreciate it. It was fun, man.